Obligatory Canadian content. Yeah, this movie was partially filmed in Toronto, Ontario, my hometown. And that's pretty much it. The movie doesn't take place in Canada or anything. So, let's talk about A Christmas Story. This movie was a yearly Christmas tradition for me in my early years. Whenever it would air, my parents, who I should say were divorced and both did not really care to be around each other for extended periods of time, would watch it with me. Usually on Christmas Day. This is in stark contrast to the fucking child abuse that I experienced on New Year's Day at the hands of my mother, who would force me to watch a 24-hour Andy Griffith marathon instead of playing Nintendo. Either way, this is one of the most quotable Christmas movies of all time. It's kind of a dour comedy. It takes place in the late 30s, early 40s. The story follows Ralphie Parker and his family, the Parkers, around the time of Christmas. There's a mainline story centering around Ralphie and his quest to obtain a Red Ryder BB gun for Christmas, to which everyone he voices this wish to warns him,
"No, shoot your eye out."
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
But besides that, there are little sidebar plots that pull the movie together. The recurring plot with the Bumpus Hounds, a bunch of unruly neighbor dogs that cause problems, the school parts such as the legendary tongue on the pole scene, and Ralphie's problem with the bully character Farkas, the little orphan Annie decoder ring, which breaks Ralphie's worldview when it ends up just being an advertisement for Ovaltine. The whole thing with the dad winning a major award and it being an obnoxious lamp shaped like a woman's leg. It's a fun little series of vignettes that surround the main plot. Each of these vignettes are just events that in the universe of the movie happen, and it all just leads up to the biggest event of the movie, which is Christmas Day. To us the viewers, it's very low stakes. What, the kid wants a BB gun for Christmas, but to Ralphie, you know, those are the biggest stakes he's faced at that point of his life. He really wants that fucking BB gun. And then, you know, through watching, you become invested in this. You really want him to get that Red Ryder BB gun at the end. And despite the generational difference, I grew up in the 90s, this movie takes place in the 40s, some of what they show is somewhat relatable to any kid, and I guess that's why this movie just works. By far, my favorite segment of A Christmas Story is the tire change segment. The Parker family is driving home from purchasing a Christmas tree, and they blow a flat tire. The dad goes out to change the tire in the middle of the road, and Ralphie goes out to assist him. When the dad accidentally knocks the bolts everywhere, Ralphie says, "Oh fudge."
Only I didn't say fudge.
I think most kids kind of have that memory of the first time you said a swear word in front of your parents. You know, my parents didn't really react badly, like nothing near what Schwartz's mom did.
He heard it from your son.
I think my mom got me with the bar of soap just like Ralphie, and my dad smacked me upside the head, but like, I knew some kids that if they swore, their parents just like completely lost their shit, even when they were older. Like, by the time I was 14, I was pretty much able to just openly use the words damn, piss, bitch, shit, cock, fuck, cunt, and Mike Bullard in front of my parents with little to no repercussions. I don't know how modern parents really react to their kids swearing. Like, where I live, a lot of people, myself included, can barely form a sentence without saying fuck. It's gone from this taboo word to literally just a buffer word for my generation. Like, I can hold off on it, but half the time I don't even notice when I say it anymore. The movie as a whole gels very cohesively. It's certainly one of my favorite Christmas movies. Its humor is very unique and almost indescribable. It's sort of dry at times, but also borders on surreal at other times. It's kind of insane. Like, it's a grounded slice of life story, but then it knows how to kind of just go out of that for when it needs to, but it doesn't go too far that it breaks the realism of the rest of the story. It perfectly captures what it's like being a kid, where shit just happens. Like, a prime example of this is the pole scene. I'm sure every kid had some sort of experience where a kid got hurt or something, and everybody just kind of ditched because they wanted to save their own ass. One thing I like about the movie is that while they are celebrating Christmas, the family isn't really too religious about it. They're not at church or anything. They just kind of leave any religious affiliation out. The movie has aged very well, both in terms of the content and its presentation, besides the ending where they eat at a Chinese restaurant that, yeah, that's aged pretty bad, but I think the movie is kind of in Blazing Saddles territory, where it is so beloved that people just give it a free pass. When somebody who has not seen this movie asks why it's funny, it's really hard to explain, so all I say is you just have to watch it. You're either gonna like it or you're not. And I find that people who didn't grow up with it tend to not like it, at least not as much as I did, but I get it, you know, it's one of those you kind of had to be there things, and I absolutely love every aspect of this movie, even though I have not sat through it in like 10 years. And why haven't I watched it in 10 years? You know what? I don't know exactly why. It was a family thing, yeah, but I think there are many factors that took the wonder wonder out of it. Mostly I recall watching this movie with my mom more than with my dad growing up, because my dad, his whole Christmas thing, I'm not even gonna get into that. So chances are I'm not gonna rewatch it again until I visit my mom for Christmas, or, you know, if I'm at a friend's house and it's playing, or until I have kids of my own or some shit. Another big thing that kinda ruined this movie for me is its rapid increase in popularity during the era of cable. I hate to be that guy, but when you find something obscure that you like, it's almost like a special thing that only you and a handful of select people know about. I think I met only like a handful of people who watched this movie growing up back when I was a kid, and it was a fun little exclusive thing that only you and those people got. Then over the years, its cult following bloomed to the point where it was no longer a cult classic, but just part of mainstream pop culture. Merchandise was like everywhere. I own like 2 or 3 articles of like Christmas themed clothing for this movie. You could get the fucking leg lamp for Christ's sake. It exploded in popularity over the years, and by the late 90s, networks were doing fucking 24-hour marathons of this movie. Like, come the fuck on. It's not completely unheard of for a movie to do just okay and then be forgotten after it gets out of theaters, only for it to blossom into a huge thing later on. Christmas Story didn't bomb on release. It made about $19 million versus $3 million budget, but would kind of go away for a while until the aforementioned TV airings and home video releases. I'm not mad that the movie was merchandised to shit and that it blew up and became popular. I'm more disappointed. I'm not a hipster. I'm not hating on it because it got popular. It's just some things are better off staying obscure and weird. You need weird niche shit to connect you to people. And the commercialization of A Christmas Story just took away what made it special. A mid-budget, modest hit, forgotten movie should stay that way in some cases, but no, this movie was vindicated by cable airings and a home video release. On the one hand, I love this movie for what it is, but on the other hand, I hate it for what it became. I have a friend who does not like the movie, and he's a bit younger than me, so he would have been around when it just started getting hugely popular in the late 90s. I totally understand why he doesn't like it. It's not that funny, but that's what made it great. It was just a very mid-tier, cozy movie. I was actually surprised later on to find out that A Christmas Story isn't a standalone movie, and that it actually isn't the first of a loosely connected series of films about Ralphie Parker and his family. There are actually 6 movies, either released theatrically or made for television, that are based off of writer Sean Shepard's original book, In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash. It's odd to me that this is just a full-on franchise. None of the movies or TV specials really reference the other. They all have different actors, and in terms of the films, if you didn't catch names, you wouldn't even be able to really tell that these are all from the same source material. They all have similar humor styles, but I think the only one that was marketed in relation to A Christmas Story was My Summer Story, a remake of an earlier TV film, which Bob Clark, director of A Christmas Story, admitted was made purely to cash in on how popular A Christmas Story was getting in the mid-90s. And it fucking bombed upon release and never became a cult hit like A Christmas Story. I never watched the other ones. I looked at a few clips for this video, and maybe at some point in time I will sit down and like through all of them, but from what I've seen, they have the similar tone and elements to A Christmas Story, but they kind of lack what made A Christmas Story work. And what made A Christmas Story work, you may ask? I think the setting of Christmas mostly. Sure, stories set during summer vacation or on the 4th of July or just in high school are relatable, just these particular ones didn't hit the same frequency that A Christmas Story managed to hit. However, the Thanksgiving one I hear is the best one out of the non-Christmas Story ones, but I'm gonna put a pin in my opinion and just say that somehow, through the right combinations of actors, budget, setting, and directing, A Christmas Story just managed to work. Whereas the other ones, despite being connected to one of the biggest Christmas movies of all time, just still kind of fly under the radar for many, myself included. But A Christmas Story, while it kind of flew under the radar for a little bit, its popularity just helped it keep growing and growing until something fucking terrible happened. They made a sequel. Yeah. Now, who am I to doubt the filmmaking talents of the man who brought us such major hits as Problem Child 2 and the Flintstones movie? 30 years after the first movie, they decided to make the sequel, A Christmas Story 2. So in this movie, Ralphie's a teenager. It takes place, I think, in the 50s or something. He's played by Braden Lemasters, I don't know who that is, and the father character is played by Daniel Stern. I like Daniel Stern. I think Daniel Stern is funny, but really outside of his narration in the Wonder Years, I usually picture Daniel Stern as this zany, wacky character, like Marv, or the character that was supposed to be Marvin Bushwhack but was changed last minute for some reason. Actor Darren McGavin played the stern but occasionally eccentric father character perfectly into a fucking T in the original Christmas Story. I know adaptations are going to be different, but that's what I picture for the dad character, just Darren McGavin, and he's that kinda, dear type father. Sure, he gets loud, but he doesn't have to get loud. Referring once again to the swear word scene, the way he seems more disappointed than mad sealed the deal on how iconic his portrayal was. But when Daniel Stern steps into the role, it just seems like zany old Daniel Stern. He lacks the look, he lacks the portrayal. That's not to say he couldn't pull it off, it's saying that whoever directed him chose not to try and make him pull it off. Darren McGavin's portrayal kinda reminds me of a younger version of my great-grandfather. Like, when I pictured my great-grandfather young, I usually just pictured the dad from A Christmas Story. The dad is my favorite character in the original, and it's just a slap in the mouth seeing how they did the character in 2. Ralphie looks like the kid who played Ralphie, and I mean, like, they went out of their way to make this guy who actually looks nothing like Peter Billingsley look exactly like fucking Peter Billingsley, but not like what Peter Billingsley would look like grown up. It's like, it's kind of fucked up. They were like, we want him to look like the kid, but as a teenager, but we want him to still look exactly the same as the kid. It bothers me. The look they went with, it bothers me, but honestly, I didn't watch the fucking movie besides a few clips, some other reviewers' videos on it, and the trailer. So I have no idea what the movie's about. I just know it was a heartless cash grab, similar to what director Bob Clark described his My Summer Story movie being, but honestly, at least My Summer Story, I can say they were trying to adapt another part of the book and, you know, make a series out of it. It's at least admirable in its greediness. If you asked me what the fuck the thought process was behind Christmas Story 2, I'd probably tell you, hey, they thought they were gonna make money, maybe they wanted to hang on to the rights for fucking syndication and video releases, but to me, A Christmas Story 2 is comparable to Cousin Eddie's Island Adventure. I think the main issue is that, much like Daniel Stern's role as the father, it's just too zany. It lacks that low-key feel that the original had, and they also kind of try to stuff it full of references to the original movie, which don't do that. Now, originally I wrote a paragraph about how there is some hope for a proper follow-up to A Christmas Story. I had planned to have this done a lot earlier than I did, but we're getting a sequel, or we got a sequel on HBO Max that ignores 2, and it features Peter Billingsley returning to the role as Ralphie as an adult who returns home for Christmas to visit his mother after his father has passed away. It's not necessary at all, but it seems like it's going to have a lot more heart than 2. The people involved have a passion for the project, and it's going to have several actors returning to their original roles, like Zach Ward as Farkas. The mother is not returning because the actor retired, but the mother from Freddy Got Fingered is taking the role, so I think it's going to be in good hands. I haven't watched it, don't know if I will watch it, but I hope anybody who is looking forward to it ends up enjoying it. I've not read the short story anthology series, In God We Trust, All Others Pay Cash, but honestly, I might check them out in the near future, and I truly think an adaptation of that book as like a limited run miniseries on HBO or a streaming service of some sort could be a major hit if done correctly. Have Peter Billingsley do the narration and use the series to adapt the other existing short stories and maybe retell A Christmas Story. Keep the 40s setting, keep the overall feel, but just kind of modernize how it's made and get some good writers in on it. I honestly think it could be a major fucking hit. Regardless of my opinions on A Christmas Story becoming over-commercialized, it is a Christmas classic, and maybe, just maybe, I will break my 10-year streak and put it on again this Christmas, because fuck it. I can't stay bitter at something forever. Christmas, or as I like to call it, Jesus Thanksgiving, I'm not religious, is a time of watching a bunch of crap, stuffing your face with turkey, mashed potatoes, and gravy, and all the fixins until you throw up just a little bit, and pure fucking sloth. And part of that is listening to a channel with almost no followers talk about a movie that literally everyone has already talked about. So with that, I leave you with the advice that if you eat as much as you can really fast and make yourself sick, you can leave your Christmas dinner before your dad becomes belligerent and drunk. Like, subscribe, I will see you later. Merry fucking Christmas.
8 minutes.
You know what your son just said?
No, what?
See what he said. Ready?
Sophie!
You better watch out, you better not cry, you better not pout, I'm telling you why. I'm gonna kill you! I'm gonna kill you! checking it twice. He's gonna find out who's a fucker. And nobody's getting fucked. Nobody's getting any toys. Nobody's getting He knows when you are sleeping. He knows when you're awake. Your stocking's filled with coal because you're spoiled brat-ass dick.